microphone is muted. Okay, here we go. Let's try that again. I'm Dan Hollifield. Welcome to Last Man Standing. We had a fantastic Stupid O'Clock tonight. Bill and I are here, and we are really hoping that we can at least keep up, or who knows, maybe even surpass tonight's Last Man Standing, which is going to be a hard act to follow, let me tell you. Here's Bill, or wait a minute, it's not Bill, it's somebody.
Tonight, the role of Bill Sutton will be played by Benjamin Bunny.
You warned me.
Or Peter Rabbit. I know I had to say it twice because you still had me muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got a brand new chair and I had to move my camera and I can't see much of the control panel here. Hey Ted.
Hi Ted.
Hey Nita.
Hi Nita.
If y'all are being night owls tonight, I can send you a link. You can come in here and try and keep us, well, not on track, but off track. That's what we want, to be kept off track.
Derailed.
Yes. Freight train going to be derailed. Ooh,
and I'm not sure, but I know the one that was just the Facebook user on Stupid O'Clock. I believe that was my friend John Mark. Because, you know, when I told you guys backstage that I kind of slipped in backstage a couple minutes before the show because everybody was trying to get a hold of me, he was one of them. And I said, I have to go do a podcast now. Oh, really? What is it? What do you guys talk about? It's like, come to the podcast and find out.
Yeah, really. In your wildest dreams.
Yeah. I just told him, I said, anything and everything.
And Nita's being a rap star, jamming to Eminem tonight, getting her post out high as a kite and debating if she will resist the urge to go get munchies. Nita, why resist? The munchies are there. Nita.
Actually, I have better than that. Hey, Nita, want to buy a dime bag?
In my day, those were paper.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Waiting on the Easter Bunny to get another fix.
Yeah. Well, I have to buy some Easter candy occasionally, and then it takes me about 6 months to eat it, just about the same way it did with the Halloween candy. And I did end up throwing away a few pieces of those. But
Lindsay got, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Lindsay got shocked. We had one year we had gotten some of those deluxe Cadbury chocolate. They're kind of like oranges.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I had one that was dark chocolate, which she does not like. I did not open the box it was in for about 18 months after we bought it.
Huh.
And it took me about 6 months to eat every single slice of that dark chocolate Cadbury orange. And she was just outraged. I mean, it's like, that should only last 30 minutes, you know.
Well, I bought a Russell Stover's coconut egg, which is just chocolate, milk chocolate and coconut. It was like hard as a rock because I keep all my chocolate in the fridge. And so I broke it into 4 pieces. I'm still eating on it. I think I still have half of it left. I mean, it's really good, but I eat very little. I've actually got more hooked on goodies from Trader Joe's. Every time we go up to Chicago, we stop at this Trader Joe's in Orland Park, Illinois, and I get these crackers, little round crackers, about big as a Ritz cracker, but they're called sweet potato crackers. And
fine, we'll go over here instead.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, they kind of taste like a corn chip more than anything. But then they have they got chai, sesame seeds, and then sweet potato flax seeds mixed in with the crackers. So they're really pretty healthy.
Yeah,
and then they have sea salt.
Sounds like health food. Yeah.
But then I put this speculicious cookie butter, which it comes in a container like peanut butter, but it's cookie butter. It tastes like raw chocolate chip cookie dough. And I mean to tell you, it is addictive beyond addictive.
Now those are the kind of crackers that I would be having one of those port wine cheese balls.
Yeah. Oh, they're great for dipping. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not a dip. You just slice the darn thing up and put it on a cracker. The trouble is, it kind of mushes instead of slices if you don't have it really cold. So if you let it sit for too long, it's kind of hard to slice, and it's easier to spread on the cracker, but it's kind of hard to slice. But that there, let's see, I don't know if it's Waterford or one of the other cracker companies that has one that has sea salt and black pepper ground on it, and it's just, you put that with some really, really sharp cheddar cheese, that's a taste explosion right there. I love that stuff. I really do. Right now I've got a cornbread muffin and the last of a bottle of buttermilk in the fridge, and I've got leftovers from my lunch at work today I need to eat first because my wife cooked it, and I really hate that I did not get to eat all of it. I only got to eat half of it because I had a really busy work day, and I had to cut my break short in order to get all the work done. So
those are the sacrifices we make.
Yes. But
I brought it home.
I stuck it in the fridge just as soon as I got home. It's just as good. I mean, it came out of the fridge at work, into the car, home. It only took like 14 minutes to get home, and then straight into the fridge here. So it's still good, and it's ground sausage. It is the spiral pasta and broccoli with a little teeny tiny bit of cheese. And oh, it was so good. It was so good. I hated to not be able to eat all of it, but I ran out of time.
Now, you bringing up the spiral pasta reminds me of yet another Seinfeldism, because the world is full of Seinfeldisms. There was an episode where Kramer, where Kramer made a little miniature version of Jerry holding a microphone out of the spiral fusilli pasta. And he called him Fusilli Jerry because Jerry's a comedian and supposed to be silly, I guess. But later on, you will find out that the Fusilli Jerry pasta, that figure that Kramer made, would end up somewhere else. And George Costanza's father had to go to the hospital to get it removed simply because he fell on it. And they said, nobody, if that ever happened to anybody, nobody in a million years would believe that it happened that way. And his father tripped and he fell backwards against the table where the little Fusilli Jerry was, knocked it on the floor. He fell on the floor, and you can imagine the rest.
I've heard stories from friends that work in emergency rooms about things like that, but there seem to be a couple of vital points missing in the story.
And has nothing to do with gerbils, so.
Well, those vital points are important. I mean, but that's neither here nor there. And even at this time of night, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole.
No, I think that's a South Park episode. And tonight I'm solely talking about Seinfeld. So I'm going to keep it as PG-14 as I can.
I don't even believe that's South Park. It's more like, what was the thing from MTV? Adult Swim.
Oh, Adult Swim, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say the young ones.
I don't think they would have went there.
Well, maybe Vivian might have.
No. British television has some alert censors. So, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll let a lot of stuff go, but misplaced pasta, I don't believe that's going to get by.
Which that's another one of the shows that was far too short-lived. I actually, when it first came out, I thought, I'm not going to watch this. This is too stupid. And then you get yourself caught up into watching it.
Mm-hmm. I came very, very close to thinking the same thing about Red Dwarf, but I binge watched about half of the first season of Red Dwarf, and I go, okay, I get it now. I'm going to keep watching this. And,
the other British. Yep. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say the other British television series that I loved so much that was far too short-lived was one that came out in 1975 called The Good Neighbors, that had Penelope Keith, I think her name was, or whatever. She was in a lot of other Britcoms at the time. And it was about a younger married couple. Their last names were Good, Tom and Barbara Good. So that hence the name of the show, The Good Neighbors. And he worked with an advertising agency along with their next door neighbor, who Penelope Keith was married to. And I think his name was Richard something or other, the actor's name. He was in a lot of stuff too. And anyway, and I'm fixing to Google it right now, because every time I think about this show, I know I should know the names of the actors and actresses.
Were the main couple making a go of organic farming?
Yes.
And the next door neighbor was a really snooty upper class woman that everything the main couple was doing was
that would be Penelope Keith. Yes.
Okay. Yes, I have seen that. It's delightful. It is absolutely delightful, especially when they were trying to get the beehives set up.
Right.
That was a particularly good set of episodes there.
And oh my God, that Felicity Kendall, who played Barbara Good, I had a crush on her like I don't know what. And I didn't even see this show until probably 3 or 4 years after it had been canceled. But yeah, Richard Briers played Tom Good. Paul Eddington played Jerry Ledbetter, which was the husband of Margot Ledbetter, played by Penelope Keith. Reginald Marsh, There's some others that I'm not too sure, but of all of them. But yeah, it started April 4th, 1975. Let's see. I'm trying to see the total number of episodes, and I'm seeing 7, but I don't see.
Oh, it went on for several seasons, several series.
Okay, 75 to 78. Yeah, there was 30 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, he basically, Tom Good was just disgusted with the outside world and how everything was done for money, and money was, if you had the money, you would rule things, and if you didn't, you couldn't. And he just wanted to get away from the rat race.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was really funny that the posh, uppity neighbors, which were actually good people once you got to know the characters, but, you know, Penelope Keith would consistently do those little one-liners, those little zingers at him for being self-sufficient. But their last name was Ledbetter. I always thought, with a name like Ledbetter, I would think they would be the ones that would be the self-sufficient people that turn their luscious landscaped yard into a farm, raising pigs and chickens and everything else, and planting a vegetable garden in the front yard. And
you have been influenced by an American comic from the Southeast.
Yeah.
Ledbetter is one of the names in his routines. Yes, indeed. Marcel and
Marcel. Yep. Oh, Jerry Clower.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what he is a hilarious storyteller. He's no longer with us, is he?
No, has not been for a while. But if you liked his type of humor, I've been occasionally posting some stuff in Uncle Carl's Secret Humor group. A few things from James Gregory, who is very much
similar.
The same. Similar in appearance and their style of comedy.
Yep.
And
he's definitely got that Southern accent going down right there.
Well, it's just the timing and everything about that reminded me so much of my high school days and buying the latest Jerry Clower album. And I couldn't buy a certain Richard Pryor album that came out in 1976 with a title that we shall not mention.
Now I'm trying to remember which one that was.
Well, I can say the first word, bicentennial. And then the second word you don't want to say. But that was the title of Richard Pryor's album that came out that year.
I can just about guess that is one of the 8th word of George Carlin's 7 words you can't say on television.
Yeah. Well, with Mom and Dad seeing the album cover with those words on it, that was it. You couldn't buy it.
I imagine so.
Now, my brother did end up buying the 8-track of it, kept it out in his truck kind of hid it in the glove box for, probably 8-10 months. Dad found it, said, I won't tell your mother about it, but get rid of it. I don't care if you sell it or give it away, but you can't keep it, because if I found it, your mother's going to find it. And which is the truth.
But Dad, have you ever listened to it?
They let us have, you mentioned the Big Bamboo album. They let us have that one. complete with rolling paper, but would not. And any other Cheech and Chong album, of course, they had virtually every Bill Cosby album, and that's how I got hooked on Bill Cosby's comedy through that. Jonathan Winters, they had one or two of his albums, which were wonderful.
Yeah. Do you remember Jonathan Winters' variety show?
Vaguely.
A lot of it was giving him an excuse to do his stand-up routine. But there would be guest stars in for little skits and things. But it really showcased the I don't know whether to call it madness or insanity that was Jonathan Winters, because he was a more than a little unhinged at times, and which is quite possibly why he was Robin Williams' favorite comedian. And they work so well together. There are several Tonight Show clips with the two of them being interviewed by Johnny, where they were guests on Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show, and Johnny just wisely sat back and let them go. I mean, just only interrupted them when it was time for a commercial, and then was very apologetic about it, because when those two got together, it's like crazy got geared up to 11. I mean, man.
I would have loved to have been backstage or seen some clips during the final seasons of Mork and Mindy when Jonathan Winters played Mork and Mindy's son.
Yep.
And some of the improv that didn't make it on camera, which I know most of it did, but the ones that didn't make it, I would love to have seen that.
The outtakes probably would have been an entirely different show, but might have I don't think it would have found commercial sponsors, but it sure would have been entertaining on late night TV. There are a lot of folks that do the sort of prop humor that Jonathan did. I mean, he just walk up there with some stuff. It's either in a bag or in a box or whatever, and pull out a prop and do an entire routine about the prop, including 3 or 4 different character voices or whatever. And it just have you about to fall out of your chair onto the floor, just laughing hilariously.
Well, whenever he...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, whenever he came on Johnny Carson, even just by himself, you never knew what he was wearing when he'd walk. One time he was wearing a bomber jacket and aviator cap, and the other time he was wearing, what was it, a Confederate or Federal frock coat and kepi.
Yep.
I think that was one of the times that Robin Williams was there.
I do believe that. I believe you're right. Yep.
But what I found amazing was when Johnny had him out, and I think he was by himself that time. He had just put out a book that had all these paintings that he did, which I never knew, of course, until I saw that episode that he painted.
I was just about to bring that up. Yes, indeed. And he shares that with Red Skelton, who was also a painter. But Red Skelton, most of his paintings were of clowns, clown makeup, because Red was a classically trained clown.
Yep. He played the sad clown, or he would, well, I was going to say Clem Kadiddlehopper, but he wasn't a clown, that character.
No.
He was just kind of a hobo, I think.
Yeah. And I remember Red Skelton's variety show as well. I mean, and oh, had John Wayne on as a guest one time. They were doing a parody of True Grit, and Clem Cadiddle came out wearing an eye patch, just like John Wayne was wearing an eye patch, but on the opposite eye. And somehow or another, Red Skelton conned John Wayne into putting on both eye patches where he couldn't see. And then the hilarity ensued.
So much of that back then. I mean, it really, they had their signature characters, whether it be the sad clown or Clem Cadiddle or Carol Burnett,
or Carol Burnett having
doing the mop lady. And then of course after Honeymooners was over and Jackie Gleason had his variety show, you had him playing the poor soul, which you never would see until he started that. And
I remember it might have been something that was bookending episodes of the Honeymooners, but I remember a Jackie Gleason a variety show. He had a bit where he was a bartender.
Oh, and,
yeah, and those were just that. I was very young, but I managed to get all the jokes that I shouldn't have gotten because they were supposed to go over my head, but I had an entire world of experience that most folks wouldn't have had by that time.
Trying to think of what the bartender's name was that he played on there, and I know it was on the variety show, but
it might have been Al. Might have been Al. I'm not sure, but he'd pour his guest, who you never saw, a beer, and then stick his fingers in it to kill the foam, and hand it over. All the while be wiping the bar down, telling all these jokes, and like he was just talking to a customer at the bar. And folks, if you're not old enough to remember this stuff, you really need to see if you can look up, if not on YouTube, then somewhere else, there's some other archive of all these shows that they were products of their time. And I remember a few that were, well, they wouldn't fly at all today. There was one that I just was absolutely hilarious, but it wouldn't fly today. Oh, good Lord, what was it name? Oh, bugger, I can't remember. Kingfish and
oh, you're I know who you're talking about. Not Lum and Abner. It's Amos and Andy.
Was it Amos and Andy?
Yeah, Kingfisher. Yeah, Kingfish. He was one of the characters in Amos and Andy show.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was regular TV viewing, and there was one that stood out in my mind. I still remember it to this day. There was one where one of them had come up with this, you can't help but call it a con, about invisible glass and trying to get the other one to invest in it. And it just poured out this imaginary bucket of imaginary liquid glass into this very real frame. And the other one goes, "Oh, that's not real glass." And the con man, which was probably Kingfish, smacked the frame and broke a real pane of glass behind his back. So so there was a sound of breaking glass. Convinced the straight man, which is probably Amos, and hilarity ensued. But finally, the shoe got put on the other foot, and things kind of fell apart for the poor old con man.
Well, that's like
that always reminded me of some of the stuff that I later found out had come from England and had been adapted for American TV, like All in the Family or Sanford and Son, which started off as British programs, and then Norman Lear.
Till Death Do Us Part and Steptoe and Son.
Yep. Norman Lear adapted it for American television.
Three's Company was even adapted from, there's, I've seen actually pictures on, I forget what Facebook page I was looking at, and saw the pictures of the man and two women. And I can't remember the name of the British version of the show. Now, one thing about Steptoe and Son, Red Fox was not on Carson, but I want to say maybe Merv Griffin or Mike Douglas.
Good night, Keisha.
Good night, Keisha. And they were talking about when he started doing Sanford and Son. He says, well, it was developed from a Britcom named Steptoe and Son, which of course the guys there are supposed to be, are they Jewish or something like that? I forget.
I really couldn't tell.
I've seen one episode, and it's been a long time ago, but
I've seen several. The only thing I could tell you was that they were not wealthy.
Right. But Red Fox said that he didn't think that it would go over too well in the United States, that it had to be a little bit more Americanized. And he said that when he was helping them develop the characters that were in Sanford and Son, like Grady Nutt and all his friends, all of Fred Sanford's friends, and then the Mexican Julio, which was the neighbor with the goat that was always terrorizing Fred. And he said they actually fashioned that after the characters from Amos and Andy. And he said that you could go back and watch an episode or two of Amos and Andy, and I totally get it. The mannerisms, the type of people that the friends and the neighbors were, that was very much like Amos and Andy. And that, so even though the original concept came from Steptoe and Son, he said that he really changed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there was another one that,
well, and still on Sanford and Son, I remember seeing pictures of Aunt Esther when she was a young up and coming star. I believe that she was a singer and dancer, and in her youth she was a hot lady. Let me tell you, she was beautiful, and still had the stage presence on Sanford and Son that she had learned from her earlier work on the stage, mostly, I do believe. for some reason, I want to say that she was actually a singer as well, but I don't know if that's a fact or if it's just something I'm confusing with somebody else. But lady had a long career before she ever got Sanford and Son. She was quite famous.
Well, I think a lot of them did, and they were just kind of bringing them back, dusting them off, putting them up with a new project. Usually that revolved around something that Norman Lear came out with. And
yeah, yep.
I've been watching some old episodes of Maude where Florida was the maid on there who would go on to be on Good Times. And they had John Amos on there as her husband, but instead of being James Evans, they called him Henry Evans on Maude. And they had him on several episodes because of the way John Amos and I'm trying to think of the actress's name, Esther Roll, who played Florida, clicked. I mean, you could tell they played off of each other perfectly. And that, so having Good Times come of that, that was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, really. Well, there were a lot of shows like that once.
And you remember Amos? He was on Mary Tyler Moore's show prior to getting Good Times. He played the sports announcer in the TV station.
Yeah.
You know, you would see Mary's and Gavin McLeod's desk right there next to each other. His was usually behind in the back of the office, you know, the office there, sitting to the side. And of course, they worked him in the show. But yeah, he was good on that show.
I had forgotten that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of these things that I've grown up with, and many of them were way before my time, and I got to see them in reruns, and really, it astounds me that stuff like that has such staying power. It seems like the writing was really, really good. The acting was really, really good. The characters were memorable and easily connected to. I mean, you could watch these characters and feel something for them. You got involved. You got invested.
Yeah, they had an episode of Maude where Maude's husband come home and he's drinking, and the next door neighbor, who's the doctor, who would later go on and be the dad of the two adopted black kids on Different Strokes. Another one of the name that I cannot remember. And the one who played his girlfriend and then wife, of course, she went on with to be on Golden Girls. But anyway, you would find out it was a 2-part episode about Maude's husband having the drinking problem. And it's one of the more serious ones.
Well, that's something Norman Lear was not afraid of doing, was tackling difficult subjects and throwing a little comedy in around the edges to make it easier to present to an audience.
You had enough going on back in the late 60s, early mid 70s, and I'm not talking about Vietnam or race riots or anything like that, which those were all addressed on many of those shows.
Yes, they were.
But the domestic problems and the downfalls of the domestic family, he hit the nail on the head so much with that, and that was where this fell into, was the husband was drinking too much, and I can put it down anytime I want, and the next door neighbor, who's the doctor and best friend of him, saying, well, go ahead. And then he'd have a rough day at the store, and he'd come home and he'd start to drink again. And then, it ends up he slaps Maud across the face, gets, violent, gives her a black eye, and he's losing control. And they call, I believe it was a priest that the doctor had sent over there to Maud's house that helped recovering alcoholics. And the thing that kind of blew me away, that they were just very adamant about it. He was saying, telling Maud's husband, this is what you're going through. I know, I went through it myself. And he said, so you're cured now. And he says, I'm better off now than what I was. But he said, I can't pick up and drink another drink for the rest of my life, because once I do, I'm back hooked again.
Yep.
He says, that's part of being an alcoholic. You don't ever stop being an alcoholic. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. You just got to know what you're going to do with it and how you're going to control it.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, this is, the only way to control it is not drink.
Yep.
And you do that however way. And for the, of course, they were talking about the different steps that you go through and that, and having a sponsor and to help you out and everything. And of course, the AA meetings and everything else, which were not new back then, but newer or new enough that a lot of people didn't know about. But just addressing that anybody can be an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. And once you make the decision to stop, you're always going to be a recovering alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
You're never cured. You're always in recovery.
Yep.
And it's always possible to backslide, and a lot of people do. And
like
they get fed up with it once more and get off the wagon, and fall off the wagon is the metaphor for drinking it. Get back on the wagon, and and try and straighten their lives out one more time. And just a lot of people are in that situation, and they're just, it's not easy. It's a struggle. It's constant vigilance. It's dealing with the underlying problem that causes the dependence on the alcohol. It's psychological. Carl could probably tell you more than you ever wanted to know about it.
Well, Norman Lear had a way of addressing a lot of problems. Last week, I've been watching Archie Bunker's Place, which when it was originally out, I never thought I would care for it too much, especially after Edith left. And so I never watched more than maybe a couple episodes of it at the beginning. And
But
So,
it was outstanding. It was just
oh yeah. Well, and
it,
it's all new to me now, and now I realize, holy crap, I should have been watching this all along.
uh-huh.
And
It was
you know,
just in
you
such a different direction for the character.
well, the episodes when Edith died,
Hmm.
um, and this was the point where, because she was in some of the episodes at the beginning, but this was the point when Gene Stapleton decided that she's going to leave the show, and
Hmm.
this was the way of writing her out. And Archie would not sleep in his bed, and when the niece Stephanie kept asking to talk about it, he wouldn't talk about it. She wanted to go see uh, Aunt Edith's grave at the cemetery, and he said, "No, we got I got to work, or we got other stuff we got to do." And it was hesitance to the point that he gets call from Stephanie's school saying she hasn't been to school all week. And Archie goes in to talk to her school counselor. She's telling him all these things that he needs to do as far as dealing with the problem of him losing his wife and Stephanie losing her aunt. And he didn't want to deal with it. And then, of course, finally, um, well, it was a two-part episode. And at the end of the second part, he goes up the stairs to the bedroom finally after they took out all of Edith's clothes and took stuff to donate, and a lot of the family was in there, and he's sitting on the bed. And of course, Norman Lear has Carol O'Connor eject a lot of Archie Bunker's humor into it. So it's not totally a serious episode, even though it was a serious episode, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But you would get little bits and pieces. But then he's sitting in there on the bed that's been totally stripped by one of Edith's relatives, and kind of has an "oh geez, Edith" moment. And he's alone, and he looks down and he sees one of her pink slippers that fell out of a box and fell underneath the bed. And he picked it up and he's looking at it, and he bends over and he says, "You know," he said, I know I used to talk to you about this, but I always told you you're going to go first, but you weren't supposed to be the one to go first. That was supposed to be me. How am I going to raise this little girl? I can't do it." And then Stephanie opens the door and is staring at him through the door as he's openly weeping, and hands on head and everything. And he looks up at her and she doesn't say a word. And then he says, "I was supposed to be the one to go first." That way he knew that Edith would take care of her. And it's just, oh man, it's, you just, whatever you're doing, you stop. And you watch this moment of this guy who usually you're cracking up laughing about some stupid thing he's saying or how he's getting worked up by something. And it shows the other side of Archie Bunker, which you see a lot of that in Archie Bunker's Place. Not that you don't see it in All in the Family, but you see more of it this way. And but it just, it's beautifully written, and I don't think anybody could have done it the way Carol O'Connor did.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. You're absolutely right there. And what astounds me is that there were so many people doing, well, I won't say similar, but there's so many people doing equal quality writing for other shows at the same time. There was so much that behind the humor, there was the real people element in the characters, and that was what kept people coming back, the audience coming back week after week, was this connection to the real people behind the comedy. Um, I probably said that wrong, but I'm hoping that what I meant was clear to folks, but it may not be, especially if they don't have the experience of having sat through some of these programs that we've been talking about, where you know, there was a lot of real life mixed in as a base for the humor to be built on. I think I said that right.
Yeah. Well, the writers could make or break a series.
Oh yeah,
and even cause a cancellation of it.
We've seen that time and time again over the years.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in the dramatic play sort of genre. There is a lot of room for many different styles of programming, and the ones that work best not only have an element of humor, but they have a background element of seriousness to contrast the humor with and make the humor stand out. And this is it's a tightrope that the writers and the producer have to walk in order to elicit the most touching performance by the actors involved. Not only for the funny stuff, but the serious stuff, and the balance between the two.
Some would say that when MASH started doing more of the serious episodes in the late 70s and early 80s, that's when it started going downhill until the Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen
now I've got a
show closer.
I've got a problem with that. I don't see that MASH ever went downhill.
Well, I know there's been some changes in MASH that people couldn't figure out, and I think 1975 was really when they did the change up of McLean Stevenson leaving, which he left on his own accord, and for the rest of his life he admitted, man, that was a dumb mistake to leave MASH. He went from MASH to Hello Larry. I mean, give me a break. Which was a spinoff of Different Strokes. Hello Larry, and they really tried to work it in, and then Trapper John leaving, and then pulling in Harry to play Colonel Potter. And even though we saw him on MASH as a different colonel just a couple years before he came.
I thought he was a general in that one, where he was.
Well, maybe he might have been a general.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah. A number, boy, come on, do a number. and everybody's like looking like, what? And he started going into that song and
and then
marching out, and they knew that the guy is Looney Tunes.
This guy needs a Section 8 worse than Klinger.
Right.
And when he ran up on Klinger, he says, "Not tonight, dear."
Yeah. I told you never to bother me while I'm reviewing the troops. He was good. He was, seeing him in Dragnet for all those years, and kind of, playing up to Jack Webb, who everything was such a monotone, which was, I know that he could do a whole lot more than that. And then I remember seeing him in movies back in the 30s and 40s when he, first of all, had hair then, and he had red hair of all things. And so when they had the one episode of MASH where everybody dyed their hair red.
Oh yeah.
And Colonel Potter dyed his hair red. That to me, it was almost like an Easter egg. And I can't remember what movie that was from that he was in. And I'm wanting to say it was a comedy. I don't think it was a Thin Man movie, but I think it might have been something with William Powell or maybe Lucille Ball or something back when they were all doing movies. But he was fairly young at the time.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I've got a pretty firm grasp on the entire Thin Man series, but I don't remember him being in it. I remember the second movie Jimmy Stewart was in.
Right.
And he must have absolutely loved that because he got to play the bad guy.
Yep. And then played opposite Myrna Loy for the second time since It's a Wonderful Life.
Now, somebody did something absolutely amazing later on. There was a totally different TV series that had the CIA agent. Can't remember his name. The one that kept going. He just so totally straight faced on everything, and he played it as if he didn't have a sense of humor.
Oh,
Colonel Flagg.
Oh, Colonel Flagg. Yeah.
Colonel Flagg, and then had
that would have been Edward Winter was the actor's name that played Colonel Flagg.
And then had the Major Burns character. Had both of those actors in this other TV series in one episode, and they swapped personalities basically. So the Major Burns actor was the tough guy, and the Colonel Flagg actor was the wimpy coward. And it was so neat to see them playing their polar opposites of what you knew them as.
Well, that's why I loved watching, for a short run as it was, but loved watching Kolchak the Night Stalker with Darren McGavin.
Yes.
Because you got to see Larry Linville playing police commander, which actually in that role, he kind of basically was playing Frank Burns, but not in the bumbling sense, but in the angry sense. And you had James Gregory playing one time. You had Dwayne Hickman, Dobie Gillis himself, playing opposite of Darren. All these wonderful people that were guest stars on that show, and I'd never seen so many big name celebrity guest stars on a TV series since Batman. And they all wanted to be on Batman, but
in Night Stalker, they played them against their stereotypes. The way people remembered them from the comedy series, they played them straight, played serious roles. And that was such a shock to the people that had grown up watching them on the sitcoms that it worked wonderfully well. Absolutely wonderfully well.
And I remember seeing Darren McGavin in so many other things prior to Kolchak, and a lot of Westerns, a lot of really good Westerns that he was in. And then, of course, movies and TV series both.
There was a movie after Kolchak where he played a a Repo Man, and I can't
Oh
remember the
yeah.
name of that one. And he was
Forget.
partnered up with this teenage girl, basically,
Hmm.
and they had to go and repossess cars for the whole movie, and they had wacky adventures, but nothing supernatural, just kind of comedy. But that was really neat. Can't
Laura,
remember any more details than that. I'm sorry. Only
Laura,
saw it
who's
once and saw it a long time ago. Laura, excuse me, Laura.
no, I was going to say Laura, who's my age. Well, you're younger, but typ- typically my age. She never saw Kolchak the Night Stalker when it was out
Ooh.
and did not know it well, but she loved him in Christmas Story. And that's one movie we have to watch every year. And on Christmas Day, or, well, we got to watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But typically, I like Christmas Story a little bit better. But anyway, but both movies are good. And I'm trying to explain the Kolchak character to her, and I am telling her because she grew up in Chicago. Her and Jenny
Hey,
both are from Chicago. All the wonderful scenes of Lakeshore Drive and
mm,
downtown Chicago, and of course the L's and everything else back in the 1974-75, that I know a lot of them are gone now. There's Caprini Greens in one scene a couple of weeks ago, and I'm thinking, boy, that's long gone. and
and
but
didn't
trying
he,
to,
didn't he drive a Mustang?
yeah, he drove a. It was a 19 either 65 or 66 um, yellow Mustang
Yellow
convertible.
Mustang convertible. Yeah.
In one of the episodes, I believe. Oh, I'm trying to think of the actress's name. Jane Kennedy? I forget. Kennedy's her last name. She was a very famous actress in the 70s and 80s. And they were coming up on a crime scene. And there's Kolchak's Mustang sitting there. And she says, oh, there's Kolchak's yellow submarine. So, he's got to be around here, really agitated about it all. But
let me take 3 steps over to the fridge. I'll be right back.
okay. No, folks, we're not going to play the Leonard Skinner song because we don't want Dan to get tromped. But, Jane Kennedy. Yeah, Jyn. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, she was just in a ton of things. And she played a, I want to say a police lieutenant in this particular episode of Kolchak. But, and Chris confirmed that Jane Kennedy was the name of the actress. Okay. And she played a police lieutenant in there. And she's the one who coined the yellow submarine name for Carl's Mustang. But I'm thinking I know the actual name of the color, the Ford color for that. And I think it was Springtime Yellow of that Mustang.
It was a pastel yellow rather than a mustard color.
Right.
Well, and the convertible top was white, and I'm trying to remember whether or not the interior upholstery was white, or if it was the same pastel yellow as the exterior of the car paint. Now,
interior should match the convertible hood typically.
Yep.
So if
it should be.
If it was white, it would be white, or if it was black, it would be black.
One of my favorite writers, Pat Elrod, who writes the Vampire Files, she was, she is a really big fan of Kolchak, and it's, I won't say it's an influence on her, but it's one of her favorite things that she will occasionally uh, borrow an element of uh, of a story from. But it, she
Well,
she gives it her own unique twist, and
mhm,
it's not something you would think of as plagiarism. It's more like this has been an inspiration, and here you go. Here's a
right.
homage. That's the word.
Mhm.
Uh, but she did her Vampire Files stories are set in Chicago, not long after the Al Capone era of the 20s. So it would have been 30s, before World War II. So, in between the 30s and the early 40s. And they are just absolutely, I mean, I can't praise her enough. And she is now, that she is getting the rights back to her books from her former publishers. She is rewriting the books, and I won't say correcting mistakes, but uh, doing the things that she had always wanted to do with the story, and adding in new scenes, and fixing things that weren't problematic at the time, but now would seem a little bit off to some readers and um, critics alike. And she's got them. She's got one that she's working on. I think it is the absolute first book in the series. It's going up a chapter at a time on her Patreon, and when it is done, she is going to self-publish it as uh, the director's cut, sort of revival of the book, and she's going to keep right on going. Now, the lady is suffering mightily from rheumatoid arthritis, and she is really, she's typing through the pain. So if you don't know Pet Elrod's work, I highly recommend it, and especially when she revises the first, I think, should be 6 books in the series, as she gets the rights back from the original publisher. She will be putting those out herself, as long as her health holds out. And just go, and even if you have, um, okay, they're no longer supposed to be new copies available, but there are used copies available of the original 6 books in the series. I think it's somewhere up around 10 now, because she's kept writing. Um, but the original publisher only had 6, I do believe. But the series is called The Vampire Files. The hero is a vampire. His name is Jack Fleming, and he was a reporter in New York City, and he moved to Chicago and was murdered by a gangster, and came back as a vampire due to the magic of plot. Evidently, one of his former girlfriends was a vampire, and he didn't really understand it at the time. But once he was no longer dead, he understood it a little bit better. And I'll leave it at that, because I'm not doing it justice. I mean, it's a fantastic series of books. please do go and hunt those out and read them, and go look up Pat on Patreon, and
look her up on eBay if you want to buy used copies.
Yep. Now the only thing she gets paid for now is the audiobooks, which are good.
Yeah.
But they're not her corrected versions. And all the print stuff, she no longer gets paid for those. So,
yeah, most of these are looking like anywhere from $1.99 to $7.17. Here's one here. Vampire Files, a lot of 3 books, volumes 1 through 3, vintage horror paperbacks, $15 or best offer. But yeah, it's Vampire Files, a lot of 4 by P.N. Elrod, Bloodless, Lady Crimson, Dark Road Song.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, 24 for that. There's 8 books for 36. So you can get
a bunch of them. Yep. Now, unfortunately, due to the arthritis, Pat can't autograph stuff anymore because it hurts her to just live. You know, she has enough trouble cooking for herself, much less signing autographs. So please don't mail her and ask her for autographs and stuff. Just let her do her thing. She's typing, she's revising. I think Bloodlist is the one that she is working on at the moment. That should be the first one in the series. Lady Crimson and Dark Sleep and like that, or later on. And and basically anything with her name on it is a good read. She worked with one of the actors from Forever Night on a series, and they co-wrote. I mean, they would basically round robin the things, so it was very good, and it had a lot to do. It's part of the side history, not the backstory, but the side history for Vampire Files. There's a couple of others. She also wrote Istrad, which is another vampiric tale. She has written The Hanged Man, which I am proud to say that my wife and I are actually characters in that book. And I'm a bad guy.
Well, we knew that. Well, you mean the book? Oh, okay.
I wasn't supposed to be, but due to the power of plot, it worked better if I was. I keep asking her, please, to write a sequel and redeem my character, so that my wife doesn't divorce me in the series, in the story universe. All right, I'll say this. So here's all the teaser you need.
Okay.
For The Hanged Man. Basically, the subtitle would be On Her Majesty's Psychic Service. Let your imagination roam. Go buy the book. She gets paid for that one.
Now, how long has she been writing these books? Seems like there's quite a few here that I'm looking through.
I found the first one in the mid-90s, I do believe, just before I got online, and I started reviewing them as soon as I got online. So that would have been about 95. Okay. 95, or If I waited until I actually started Aphelion, then that would have been 97. But I did do book reviews of them in the earliest years of Aphelion, starting in 97. So and she has not slowed down very much. I mean, she's had to slow down a little bit, but she hasn't slowed down very much. As long as her health holds out, and it's basically rheumatoid arthritis that keeps her from just being an absolute powerhouse of a you know 1,000 word a day writer. She's restricted to how long she can type before it hurts too much to type anymore.
Right, right. Well, I can relate, but mine's not in my hands, but in my legs. Same with Flora, actually. But I need to take further than 3 steps.
Go right ahead. Go right
and
ahead.
I shall. I'll just. I don't know if I shut the camera off, right? Or
if you want to, you can just leave. You could just leave us with the view of your wonderful photograph wall behind your chair if you want.
Well, I didn't want you to get bored, but I will do that then, and I shall return.
All righty. We'll see you when you get back.
I will mute the mic, though.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you will look carefully at the wall behind Bill's chair, you will see a Spider-Man toy. You will see a photograph of Julie Newmar as Catwoman. You will see Amelia Pond. You will see Burt Ward as Robin. And I can't scan in deep enough to get any further details, but Bill is quite the collector, and he is a very gregarious person and has collected lots and lots of autographed photographs and lots of friends of people that you have seen on television and in movies. And basically, if there's somebody famous out there that Bill doesn't know, I'm surprised. So there you go. This is one of those occasions where I'm at a loss for words, but that won't last very long because I usually just jabber on like a magpie. Or I bet that's a really silly simile right there, but I'm stuck. So you're stuck with that one. Now we have been talking about classic TV shows a lot in this Last Man Standing. Kolchak the Night Stalker is an excellent show. The Archie Bunker's Place is a nice insight into the changing of society in the 70s and 80s as things like the civil rights movement began to really be successful and influential rather than just a fledgling like in the 60s where all the real struggle and everything went on. But this is in the 70s. There was progress being made faster and faster and faster, and it's still going on to this day, which is a damn good thing. Chris Walker says Bill could draw it, Dan. Yeah, well, yeah, Bill can draw just about anything. I have yet to find something he can't draw. And Bill's a fascinating guy. He has this one of his hobbies is classic cartoons. both on television and movie theater cartoons. Not anime, but I mean before the movie, here's a cartoon sort of thing. He has a depth of knowledge about all of this stuff that puts a lot of people to shame, because he remembers the details, or if he doesn't remember the details, he remembers enough to be able to look it up, and he got firsthand experience in a lot of it. And here he comes back. So I will quit babbling and let almost wound up quoting ZZ Top there, for Manic Mechanic is the name of the song.
Oh, I know a lot of ZZ Top, but album to album I don't.
Well, this one, the lyric in question was, I'll be back for you, Jack, and this time I'll let the machine speak. It's the one about the drag race, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Manic Mechanic, I do believe, is the title of the song. It's off one of their first 3 or 4 albums. I don't remember which one.
When we go up to Chicago, to the one of the turnoffs, I can't remember which one, if it's off of 45 getting onto, or no, it's off Interstate 80 getting on 45. Mm-hmm. And it's called LaGrange Road.
Oh, yes. Well, I can see where that's going.
And of course, I'm sitting there next to Laura and getting ready for her to call me a dork, like she typically does when I do something like this. And we were talking about, when I do the route by myself, when I have to take her dad up there, mm-hmm. On the times that she won't be able to come. And she says, now just remember LaGrange Road right here and turn. I'm like, yeah, you got a lot of nice girls there, huh? Like that. And she turned around and looked. She goes, what? And I'm like, okay, she didn't get that reference.
I bet she doesn't have Sirius XM or some kind of music on demand in her car.
No, we typically listen to WBBM out of Chicago, which is just a news radio station. But she knows some of the music. I mean, like I said, she's only a year younger than I am, and but there's a lot of those songs that she just never heard. And I tried even doing something like else to try to make her, okay, I'm going to give her one more chance at what my little dorky statement was all about. And I started going, ha, 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 ha. And she just looked at me even more strange. And I'm like, oh, good grief, I give up. And I said, I thought you were a ZZ Top fan. She says, well, I like some of their music. And I'm like, LaGrange? And she says, no, I've never heard that song.
I think that was off Tres Hombres.
Tres Hombres, which was one album of theirs that I owned. My brother owned Eliminator, and the one just previous to that, not remember the name. But anyway,
she's either going to have to look it up on YouTube, or you're going to have to break down and find a copy of the CD and pop it in her player.
Well, I would have easily pulled it up on YouTube or Facebook videos on Watch and let her hear a little bit of it, because I'm sure she would know the song if she heard it. But her dad was sleeping in the back seat, and I did not want to wake him up.
Yep, and ZZ Top is one of those bands where easy listening does not describe them at all. You need,
and she loves plenty of, Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and things like that, but I've actually even stumped her with a few of their songs that I thought was somewhat obvious to if you're a fan. But anyway, yeah, and I think it was in the Armageddon soundtrack, Chris.
Yeah, Chris. I believe you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, I was waiting for her to get the reference and then say dork. And to which I would call her Dorkette or something like that. She said some dorky things a lot too, but few I let her get by with. But
one of my frequent earworms is "Waiting on the Bus." Jesus just left Chicago.
Oh yeah, I love that song. Well, it's actually two songs in one.
Two songs that blend together, kind of like "Band on the Run" and oh God, what's the other half of that? You ought to know.
Well, it's just "Band on the Run," but I know it jumps track.
Yeah, the intro is very different from the outro. Yes.
Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with a little help from my friends.
Yeah.
That are meant from one. Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding for Elton John. Mm-hmm. Those are two songs that one melds into the second song. And I think I even mentioned that ZZ Top song to her before, and she didn't know it. And we have a wonderful station over in Champaign called WKIO 107.9 FM. You can pick them up on the internet, and it is a excellent classic rock station that plays 60s, 70s, and 80s, predominantly mid to late 60s through early 80s.
Okay, Chris. And the intro to the longer version of which song? We've covered a lot of territory here, so
yeah. Chris just can't type quick enough. That's all.
No, well, he needs to be in here if he's home, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, we've only got half an hour left.
Half hour earlier, but
yeah. And really, I hate to end the show on time tonight because I don't have to. Band on the Run. Okay.
Oh, Band on the Run. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've only ever heard the longer version. Because I didn't have the McCartney album that had that on there. I don't remember which. Well, it's probably "Band on the Run" is the name of the album. Probably, I'm guessing.
Well, so many. They're Chicago songs
that's true.
Make Me Smile is actually part of a kind of a rock opera that they did that actually included the one song. Well, the whole grouping of songs starts off with a song called "A Girl from Buchanan." It plays part of "Make Me Smile" at the beginning and finishes it up at the end. But in the middle of it, amongst all the other songs that are woven into this big, long, little mini rock opera that Chicago's doing, is "Color My World."
Yes.
And anyway, I was so used to hearing it all just the way it was. Even their live album set that they had out in the mid 70s was included it to be played that way. When I went to see Chicago in 1987 in Lafayette, Indiana, which was the very first concert of a world tour that they were doing, and we didn't know that at the time, but this was a 3.5, almost 4 hour long concert that had no opening act, had a 20-minute intermission halfway through. But what really is my pet peeve, and even this radio station that I just previously mentioned that I love so dearly because they play a lot of classic rock, and I get on them, and Mike Hale, one of the on-air personalities, I'm just going to have to sit that man down and have a talk with him about playing the longer version of 25 or 6 to 4 that has Terry Kath's wonderful wah-wah pedal guitar solos throughout the middle of it.
Yes. There are some stuff on YouTube that they're live performances, and they are really awesome. I don't know which concert they're from, but there's some excellent recordings of Chicago with the brass section live, and it will knock your socks off.
I bet you're thinking of the Tanglewood, California concert from 1970.
Probably, but as I said, it's on YouTube. You can watch it
in its entirety. I bet.
Dire Straits, excuse me, is a long intro version. Don't really care for the song that much, but the intro is awesome. Yeah. That I used to have back in the day when cassettes ruled the world and vinyl was trying to fade into the background. I used to have a mixtape, which is one of those things that people would make on their own and blend different songs together. And Money for Nothing with the long intro was the opening of that particular mixtape. And there were a lot of other things on there following that. I found a Bebop Deluxe song that fit perfectly into something by Men Without Hats, I do believe. And then that fit perfectly into a Thomas Dolby song. And then that fit perfectly into something else, which fit in perfectly into. It's just one of those things where the end of one song blended into the beginning of another song by another group, and it just went on and on and on for at least 90 minutes, both sides of a cassette tape, and I would wear that sucker out in my car.
Chris, I've never heard of Money for Nothing that did not have Sting's kind of moaning, "I want my MTV" at the beginning of it. I don't know unless there's even the radio play version of that song always had that in there. Of course, he's in other parts of the song, but I know what he's referring to. But
the music video from MTV as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of songs that came out, and particularly in the 70s, where there was a quote unquote album version that would be longer.
Yes.
And I will say there's some of them probably should have never been made. It just wasn't needed. But some I did like. I know Miracles by Jefferson Starship had a complete verse that was always my favorite verse in the song that was not on the radio play version, but it was part of the album and would later become part of
random association. There's a there's a YouTube video of Black Sabbath doing one of their songs, and at the moment I can't remember the title, but it has different lyrics to what actually wound up on the album. And you watch the video and you go, oh, this is where they were actually writing the song and hadn't finalized exactly which lyrics they were going to use. So it had lots of extra stuff in it. Yes, yes. Radio edit versions. Yes, indeed. There is a YouTube video of Iron Butterflies In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, which has the entire 25-minute long song, and it actually has the exact same recording as on the vinyl album of side 2 of In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. And you can, if you grew up with the album version like I did, every single note that's going to come down along the recording. And if you're watching this video, you get to see them play the exact same notes in the exact same time signature, everything exactly as if it were on the vinyl album. And it is an amazing piece of material.
Most disc jockeys, or on-air personalities as they're called now, would tell you that they would play a song like that, or Slow Ride, or Hey Jude, when they had to go take a bathroom break or go grab something from the lounge or whatever to bring back in, even though they weren't technically allowed to eat or drink while on the air, but they did anyway.
Kraftwerk's Autobahn takes up an entire vinyl album side. There are a lot of things like that. You could put on Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds and walk away for 40 minutes and come back. Yeah, because that's basically 3 songs, one of which has 2 different sets of lyrics. And oh wow, no, he wasn't high, he was drunk. And his father was either preacher or the organ player at a church, which allowed them to use the church as a rehearsal hall. And the organ part for In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida was developed on a church pipe organ in in several recording sessions. It probably took more than one. But yes, the In the Garden of Eden was the original title and featured heavily in the lyrics. But as you said, they were intoxicated, so it wound up getting slurred into In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. So
yeah, and I did hear a straight version of that song that was either previously recorded or recorded afterwards, and that a lot of people like, oh wow, this is just totally horrible, because after they heard In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, and then
in the Garden of Eden, yeah. And yes, people, it was used in a Simpsons episode where Bart swapped the sheet music into the church's organ playing organist, into her hymnal, and I think Homer and Marge just kind of looked at each other and go, "We used to make out to this song, didn't we?"
Yeah. Then everybody in the church started lighting flicking their lighters like they were in a concert. But
and if you don't know concerts from the 70s, that was the thing to do when the band went off stage and you wanted to call them back for their first encore, their second encore, thereabouts. The lights on stage would go down, the lights in the stadium would go down, and everybody would pull out their big lighters and fire them up.
Yeah.
And
Iron Butterfly typically was not a bad band per se for the time, but they were solely labeled with as being a one-hit wonder. And I've heard some of the other, well, of course, I've heard the other stuff off that album, naturally, but I've heard one of their other albums, and why they didn't go any further, I don't know, but they didn't.
There were some there were substance abuse problems, and there were personality conflicts, and one of the fellows for some reason, I want to say he just vanished for a while and then came back. People thought he was dead, but then he came back, and now several of them have now sadly passed away. But then that the song was released, and that was not their first album. I think it was their second or third, but it was released in 1969. So,
Am I thinking correctly that they were on the Karma Sutra label, or was that
I'm not sure.
Was there another
sure.
label?
They were on several different labels.
Well, I meant for that album.
I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've actually pulled the vinyl out.
Yeah, I no longer have it. It was one of those. I was able to listen to it once, maybe twice, and then it just got kind of shoved in the back, collected a little bit of dust. It wasn't an album that I pulled out a lot. There were a lot of others that I did, and it just solely was not one of them. Like I said, I didn't mean that I didn't like them, but another one that I think of that runs along the same lines, I picked this up used, possibly, or in a bargain bin. It might have been in a bargain bin at a record store. Was Vanilla Fudge's had I think it was a double album called The Beat Goes On. And yes, they sang a version of the Sonny and Cher song.
Okay.
And kind of a mediocre version of it.
Well, it's hard to talk Sonny and Cher on their own playing ground,
Well, and two, they sang differently than Sonny and Cher. They were more like Iron Butterfly. In that sense.
Butch had a long and storied career, not only of that, but lots of other things besides. But
The Beat Goes On is solely a very psychedelic album, much like Inagata Devita.
Definitely.
Best thing I remember about it was that they, at the beginning of side one, they had using some sort of an echo chamber, it said phase 1, and you flip it over and it'd say phase 2, and then of course the other album would say phase 3 and phase 4. Mm-hmm. And they would have all their little experimental songs throughout the album.
Yeah. There were
another album that ended with
that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It once again, interesting for one or two times.
I'll be right back.
Okay. But and it's not that I didn't like psychedelic music. Obviously I did. I got into all the Beatles stuff that was such, even very much a lot of George Harrison sitar music. I got into some of the Rolling Stones psychedelic music, 10,000 Light Years from Home and She's a Rainbow, and some of the ones off of the Flowers album where they were experimenting with it. But when it got to be too much of a gimmick and less of something that actually meant anything, because obviously the movement meant something to some people, typically the kids, more than anybody else. This was supposed to be their music, and their music ended up being performed by 30-something-year-old people or late 20-something-year-old people, stuff like this, who really wasn't part of their generation, and that to say. And it was no different than when the disco era came about. And a lot of the people went and had their little run of, well, disco's hot right now, let's make a disco song or a disco album or whatever, and you had Kiss, I Was Made for Loving You, or Rolling Stones did Miss You and Emotional Rescue, different things. Most of the stuff off the Miss You album was quite well for a Rolling Stones because it wasn't totally disco, but that was their experimentation with discos, much like the psychedelic stuff that they did on the Flowers album in the mid-60s. But so where the psychedelic scene for the kids in the 60s, when it stopped being represented by the people of their generation and a little bit older ones, it was much the same in the 70s with disco era. I was not part of the disco scene. I was part of the anti-disco scene more than anything else, and
I can identify. Yes,
especially after when Gary Meyer had they had the disco demolition night, which it was actually initially supposed to be Gary Meyer, who was a famous disc jockey on The Loop in Chicago at the time. They had a little thing, hey, bring in a disco album that you absolutely hate, which of course you're supposed to hate all disco albums, and we'll let you into the White Sox game for free. And so all these people did this, and of course he went out on the middle of the field and lit all these albums on fire, and everybody went nuts. Of course, the people at Comiskey Park went nuts because they didn't know this was part of disco demolition night. And then they started fires in the bleachers, and that was probably the most famous thing that Gary Meyer and Steve Dahl, well, probably not Gary Meyer, but he was a partner of his for a while, but Steve Dahl singularly was most popular for, if anybody says Steve Dahl disc jockey in Chicago, then they're going to remember Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park. And they had to cancel the game, and the White Sox had to forfeit the game because of that as well.
I bet that was really popular.
It was very popular. It was. I'm friends with Gary's wife on Facebook, and see him. He still posts stuff to this day, and
that sort of thing would cause a riot in some places.
Well, that's basically what it did.
You're burning my album.
Well, when I got to put it this way, when he went to burn these albums, the big pile of disco albums, and it was you imagine how many people that live in Chicago and say, hey, bring a disco album in, and that's your ticket to get in to see the game, a lot of people responded. I'm not talking just several hundred, but several thousand. And and here's Gary Meyer, this, young smart mouth disc jockey who was well known for his mouth on the loop, and he's coming in a olive drab green army jacket and the helmet on, and he actually sets off a detonator, a charge that kind of blows them up in the air, and then of course it starts the fire in the middle of the field. And that was a lot of people contribute the end of disco, because this happened in 1979, to Steve Dahl doing this Disco Demolition Night, because so many knew about this afterwards. And I don't mean just around Chicago or downstate here in Illinois or anything, but just all over. I mean, it made national news. I remember seeing it on the CBS Evening News and NBC News and that. And it just, it was something that nobody knew that he was going to pull. And oddly enough, he did not get fired from the Loop radio station over the deal. There were a lot of fines issued. But that's about as far as it went.
Well, I did not. This is the first time I've ever heard of it, so I can't say it contributed to my part of the downfall of disco. But my part of the downfall of disco was not buying any disco albums, basically.
Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube. The video is all there, and Chris said that it led to New Wave. New Wave was really kind of up and coming already.
Yeah. Now, if you'd said punk, I would say definitely that was a reaction to trying to do away with disco. Yeah.
Yeah, and punk was out in the early CBGBs. They had a lot. I know the Ramones and Blondie.
Sex Pistols.
Not
Iggy
the set.
There was. Well, now you've got to understand, I didn't run into punk until I was in college, which would have been 76 through early 78. But I was friends with a lot of people that had widely varied musical interests. So I got to hear a lot of stuff that I had never been exposed to before. And then as the 80s went on, I got to hear even more stuff that I had never been exposed to before. The Go-Go's started off as punk. Yeah,
they did. And actually even the B-52s, even though they kind of more, you say, oh, well, they're new wave. Well, no, when you listen to the early stuff, and I'm not just saying Rock Lobster, but even earlier than that, you could see the influences very easily.
I was in Athens, so I know about. I know about
before the Beehive hairdos and all that, because
before they hit it big. I know about the V-52s, REM, Love Tractor, Pylon. I hate to say this one, but it's late enough at night. There was a band that played in Athens that wasn't from Athens called the Butthole Surfers, which had a big hit.
I heard of them.
Yep. They had a big radio hit. There are not just dozens, but hundreds of local bands that have made it moderately big or hugely big that came out of Athens.
Well, a lot of them kind of morphed from punk into new wave. And I mean, I really think that's what Blondie did to a certain extent, because, I just a lot of the stuff that they did. And then,
well, the thing about
Talking Heads, the same way.
Talking Heads, there you go, New York style. The thing about punk is it's really great in small doses, but not as a continuing, ongoing thing. After just a few punk songs, you want to cleanse your palate with something a little bit more. Okay, not a little bit more, but a little bit less primal and basic, basically. That was a stupid sentence, Dan. Your inner editor is screaming at you over that one.
Well, I could listen to Wendy Williams singing a Plasmatic song back in the day, and kind of laugh about it or whatever, just get a giggle from it. But I don't think I would want to be exposed to a whole album of her songs. And
I think for Wendy O. Williams, the big draw was a live concert. It was more performance art than it was here's an album. Because on the album, you didn't get to see the band's antics on stage. And for some bands, their stage show is much more important than the actual music that gets recorded. And there are a lot of people that cannot, they can't cope with that. It's not, they've got the worldview that the music is everything. Other bands have the performance, the stage show is everything. The music is supporting the stage show, basically.
Well, the Ramones wanted to stick to that 2-minute length.
Yep, 2 minute, 3
rock and roll song.
Yep.
Even though it would have been called something like Beat the Brat with a Baseball Bat, or Sheena is a punk rocker, Teenage Lobotomy.
Lyrics right there in the title.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at, you think, okay, how is the KKK Took My Baby Away a rock and roll song? But if you break it down, whether it be that song or Rock and Roll High School, whatever, I Want to Be Sedated, any of those songs that they did were the formulaic 2-minute long rock song. And then when you listen to the lyrics, then it becomes the punk song that the Ramones were so noted for. And but yeah, the Johnny's and Dee Dee's guitar playing and the drum beat that Marky did, which actually I seen a very early picture of Joey Ramone. I'm trying to think of what his real name is. When he had short hair, but still had the round sunglasses. And he started out as a drummer for another band, but I cannot think of the name of it. There's a Facebook page called Maleficence Vintage that shows a lot of obscure photos of different rock and TV and movie celebrities.
Yeah. And
this was the obscure one that I have never, and I've seen a lot from the Ramones. I've always been my introduction to the Ramones wasn't too awful early. Mine was 1977 when the Road to Ruin album came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I dearly loved that. Then, in course, 79, I think it was when the Rock and Roll High School movie came out.
Did you ever see the movie?
Oh, yeah. I saw the movie at the movie theater.
Yeah. And Clint Howard was in it. Briefly.
Clint Howard and Vincent Van Patten. And there was a lot.
I saw the movie because I was a fan of the Ramones. Mm-hmm. I'm not an extremist fan, but I went to see the movie, and it was just, oh my goodness! They took every teenage rebellion, teenage high school rebellion trope from all the beach blanket bingo movies and all that stuff, and brought it into the late 70s, early 80s, and just nailed it to the wall.
Yeah. Well, you would see like Porky's and everything else. Chris says PJ Souls. That was her movie.
Yes, that was
prior to her being in Stripes with Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. She was Riff Randall, the Ramones'
biggest fan,
and president of their fan club.
I just know. If anybody hasn't seen the movie, if you like the Ramones, this is a good thing to expand your appreciation of the band, because the band is in the movie too, not till the end, but yeah.
Now, did you ever have the soundtrack to the movie? It was they were on the Sire label, because as well as all the Ramones songs that you would know and love, there were other songs by other groups, and I'll shoot one out to you. Todd Rundgren had a song.
Yes, and I think Brian Eno had one.
Brian Eno had a song in there.
Magic Flute Magician. Yes.
It's actually a very decent soundtrack.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I'm not sure if I do believe I do have it on vinyl. I'm not sure, but I do believe I do have it on vinyl.
I did.
Now a lot. Okay, out of the 600 or 700 vinyl albums I had from back in the day, well over 100, 150 were stolen from me. So, that's the trouble with divorce.
Well, that's true.
Stuff just disappeared, and when you got that many, it's hard to tell which ones are gone and which ones aren't. But there were a lot of things that I had a white vinyl version of the White Album that disappeared.
Yep, I had one too. I had the picture disc of Sgt. Pepper's.
I had a white version of The Wall that disappeared.
Remember when you got the album The Wall, that super huge poster that came with it? I think it covered half the wall in my bedroom, which I had a small bedroom at the time, but it was the graphics that kind of, I don't know. I'll tell you, the graphics in The Wall looked like Ralph Steadman did them, that did all the Hunter Thompson graphics in his books. And I'm kind of wondering now if that really was Ralph Steadman that did, because it was kind of a signature type look to it.
Because I would tend to guess that Pink Floyd, being a British band, would have hired a British artist. But then again, they were a very big band and had the entire world full of artists to choose from. So my guess is probably worth about as much as a bullet made of manure. But These things happen. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I'm just I know a few things about a few things, and what I don't know is an entire universe full of stuff.
I'm
Oh,
actually Googling it now because I'm just
yeah.
okay. So actually, the wall was illustrated by Gerald Scarfe, Scarfe. Um, so I was wrong about that,
Yeah.
but the way they look, they um,
It might have been inspired by the artist that you named before. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know if you ever saw or even if you ever owned any of Hunter Thompson's books, but Ralph
Yeah.
Steadman did all the chapter beginning illustrations and that in there,
The
and
one
very, very demented, drug laden use illustrations by all means. But
the ones that I have are not illustrated.
mm,
I think I may only have one, and it was the one about the Hells Angels. And it's not illustrated whatsoever.
I did a
There,
recreation of Hunter Thompson. It was a Ralph Steadman drawing, and I just I could probably pull it up here real quick, but
oh,
a
here
lot
you,
of his stuff was really wonderful.
Chris said that the illustrations on the wall remind him of Terry Gilliam's artwork, and I would assume the animation too from
Yeah, a little bit.
yeah. Um, it does have that touch to it. Um, oh, there was something I wanted to bring up several minutes ago. Uh, when we were talking about stuff that's on YouTube that people would not believe that was there. There is a recording of Mike Oldfield doing the entire Tubular Bells album, in which he plays all the instruments.
Do
And
you recall what
it,
year it's from? Or
I don't recall what year it's from, but it's live, and he does play a great many of the instruments, but he also has for the live video, he also has other people backing him up on stuff when he's changing from one instrument to another, and they've got to continue what he was doing on the one. It's excellent. It takes up the exact same amount of time as the album does. There was something else. There was something else. Let's see. Oh, God, we're 10 minutes over.
yeah,
Um,
and I did find the
yeah,
illustration that I did, and that is a Stedman. Well, that's my version of Stedman's. That probably is the one of him that I like the best. That just
I think the best person to illustrate a Hunter Thompson book would probably be the guy that did the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers Underground comic.
yeah.
That
Which,
was
by the
that.
way, I've seen the cartoon on Tubi. It's exclusively on Tubi TV. A lot of wonderful people are voicing the characters in that. But and I used to read the Fabulous Freak Brothers. I loved all that kind of stuff. I used to read all the R. Crumb stuff.
Yeah,
This I will say, and this is just my opinion, so people watch it for yourself and judge yourself. I I was not amused. It didn't it didn't really do the job for me what I thought it would be.
it wasn't true to the spirit of the comics.
Yeah, it really was more like something you would see on Sunday's Fox Animation Domination. A lot of the stuff that they have out now, and I was bored with it. I watched the first 3 episodes, and I can't remember how many episodes are in now, but they're still continuing to make new ones so far, once a week. But yeah, I watched the first 3 episodes, really trying to get into it, and I couldn't do it. It was. I guess to quote Hunter Thompson, it just wasn't strange enough for me, or weird enough for me. I mean, and truthfully, I believe was the problem I had with it. It wasn't weird enough.
I got to say, my favorite underground comic was probably Dr. Atomic. And I had 3, maybe 5, I don't know, issues of the comic itself, and it was a black and white, and it was very well written. It was drawn in the Arkham style, so it was rather bulbous, basically. It reminded me a lot of some of the early Popeye animation from the
Fleischer,
the early black and white Fleischer animation. What was
Art Crumb had a thing for big women. He readily admitted to it. I've actually seen a couple of YouTube videos that part of a documentary where they interviewed him, and he talked about his fetishes and different things that influenced his artistic style and some of the characters that he drew, and he was very forward about it. And you look at him, and he's just this little dude. He kind of reminded you of Leon Redbone by stature and everything. And you think, man, this is the guy that drew all this stuff and created all. Yeah, it's like it was hard to believe.
There is not a 1-to-1 correlation between what an artist and illustrator looks like and what his work looks like. Seriously. Oh Lord, something else I wanted to bring up before. We're going back to music. I was really surprised to discover that Alice Cooper writes some of the best love songs ever. Everybody thinks shock and horror and blood and gore and well, I've got to tell you, when the guy sets his pen to writing a love song, it will make you cry. It's just that good. Frank Zappa has some of the most science fiction-y elements to a lot of what I have to call modern jazz, basically. And if people are not familiar with Zappa's work, then it's very funny, and it's very irreverent, and it is well worth your time. Do not approach Joe's Garage without going through some of the other stuff first.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of hard to nail him down to any particular style.
Well, the man had a PhD in music. I mean, basically everything that you see, if you watch a video on YouTube of Zappa and the Mothers of Invention playing, he actually wrote a lot of that out as sheet music, and they had to learn it.
Which that one famous cover of theirs was done by R. Crumb.
Yeah, indeed. And a lot of other people did amazing artwork for those covers. And they were drawings rather than photographs.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else?
Yeah, well, you could think of Thin Lizzy's Jailbreak, or
Yep.
Aerosmith's Draw the Line.
Mhm.
It goes. There was actually an album that Rick Springfield came out with in the early 70s called Comic Book Heroes. And the whole album, the front of it is Rick kind of in concert type clothes, but it's got a big R on the front of his sweater.
There you go.
Each song on the album, there is a illustration inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, You and Me was one of his good, well, and Only Women Bleed was his homage to the plight of and suffering of women. But anyway,
spouse abuse. Yep. And How You Gonna See Me Now? Yeah. Yeah. There's, like I said, Alice is very. If you think he's only about shock rock, then you haven't discovered all the true depths to his music. Here's another thing that Chris said: Roger Dean's album covers, and Roger Dean did lots and lots and lots of album covers for different bands. But once you see a Roger Dean cover, you can recognize that no matter what band that it is the cover artwork for. Uh, Lord, lots of things. Okay, we're now almost 20 minutes over.
So, yeah, I do need to get going because I have an early morning tomorrow. Got actually a lot of things cooking. Mm-hmm. I should be able to come back for Stupid O'Clock on Saturday, maybe most of it, or at least the first hour of it. Sunday being Easter, we got a lot going on early.
Good point.
Monday, I get to go have a bone marrow biopsy done on me.
That does not sound comforting.
Well, I've had a lot of, I don't get into a lot of specifics publicly, but since we're real late, and
I actually know what that involves, and believe me, I am shrinking in my chair right now. Just thinking about it. So.
I've been, there's a couple issues that have come up, but for the last 4 years, my white blood cell count's been down. I've been for almost a year attempting to do a few things about it, taking folic acid and my vitamin water that contains 100% B12 and different things to try to bring them up. My specialist that's going to do this biopsy on Monday, she's basically saying, because I am a vegetarian, there are a lot of people that have low white blood cell counts that are perfectly normal.
Yeah.
She wants to make sure if I'm to be put into that category or if there's some other issue going on, because if it continues to go down, and even though they've ruled out leukemia and AIDS and all these other cancers and stuff that could become a problem, there's another one called MDS. It's myoplastic something syndrome, and it's a different form of acute, well, that could lead to acute leukemia. It's where your white and red blood cells that are in your blood and your bone marrow aren't maturing. And when they get out, they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
She's wanting to do this biopsy to get in there into the bone marrow to get this out to see whether I possibly have the MDS or not, and which it's very concerning. That's happening Monday. So Laura's taking me, and because they're gonna I'll be probably feeling a little loopy afterwards, and then the very next day we get to go back up to Elk Grove, up to Chicago, because we take her dad to get his shots in his eyes, and Laura wasn't exactly sure if I would be up for the trip, and I said, well, of course. I said, I think the last thing I want to be after having this biopsy is being alone, and I've been talking back and forth with the specialists and a couple of the other people from the cancer center, saying that you're going to have a bruise and different things, but it's manageable. So about the next 3 or 4 days, it's going to be fairly busy for me. But
I really hate to say this, Bill, knowing you're a vegetarian, but in order to preserve your health, you might have to have a cheeseburger.
Yeah. Well, I used to love bacon until the ulcers said, you better not eat any more of that. I'm telling you now. I used to love hot dogs till I found out what was in them. That's when I stopped eating them. But I'll tell you, if I could eat bacon to this day, I would still eat it.
It's mostly sawdust. I mean, hot dogs are perfectly benign. It's
a lot of entrails and different organs that we just don't want to bring up. But
no. That's trace elements. The only meat in hot dogs is trace elements. Most of it is sawdust. I mean, it's it's one of those things.
Well, the B12 is to help me that and other forms of protein that I can get besides the red meat. I will go for those options, and I do, and even something as simple as peanut butter. I kind of have an issue with peanuts and different things right now because of a different issue that I have, but I'm supposed to lay off of those for a while. But
well, if it comes down to it, in order to save your life, I will barbecue you or grill you out a steak and pork chops and just to make sure that it's healthy. I'll give you a salad and a baked potato to go with it. But only if you need it, only if it's a medical emergency. I'm not going to try and tell you that being a vegetarian is wrong, because that's stupid. It's not wrong.
It's everybody's choice in that. And then
really.
My little sister Jenny, she's actually a vegan, and there's a lot of stuff that she doesn't agree with me on stuff. Like she's totally against dairy and different things. And I said, okay, that
you can't be giving up the pancakes.
Yeah, well, actually haven't ate pancakes in a while, but except for when I went to Cracker Barrel, and that might happen Monday, but we'll see. Yep. But and I agree with Chris. Vegetables are good for you, and
good for you. Yeah.
Tomorrow night when we go to the auction, I'll make sure to get my fried corn nuggets and fried cauliflower. So I'll get my vegetables.
Yep, I have to have a one of the little teeny tiny size V8s every day, because it's not that my diet is mostly meat; it's that my diet is mostly non-existent. So I need to get all the vegetables and minerals and vitamins that I can, however I can get them. And I grew up on a farm with food we raised, and we didn't have cattle, so we didn't make our own hamburgers. All the meat that we had was store bought, but uh, everything everything that you can grow in a vegetable garden we had, from tomatoes and corn and eggplant on up to, we even grew peanuts at one time. Just enough for us, not enough to sell. But
I think Chris is trying to tell you to give up your cigarettes and beverages.
Well, Chris can go take a long walk off a short pier.
I'm intentionally
give up all my bad habits, I'm going to live forever. I mean, who wants that?
Well, and that's like with me. I mean, I'm actually maintaining a weight right now. I've lost a ton of weight in the last 14, 15 months. And I'm wearing clothes that I haven't worn since high school because of that. That's fine. But yes, I do want to be healthy too. Today I went out and did my 6K walk in the middle of those gale force winds that we were having, and which added to the workout. But I, try to get it in and trying to do that, the exercise part too. But then as far as the eating, I am a little bit more vigilant on what is going into my food. I'm a little bit more vigilant on the sodium levels of things, whereas I do not have trouble with sodium right now. I don't want to have trouble with it. I don't have high blood pressure, and I'm not cutting out sodium altogether, but I'm watching to see how much there has. And one thing I found that I will tell you, now Laura told me, and I said, really? And I almost didn't believe her, but I had bought some strawberries and I ate the last of the strawberries tonight, of course, making strawberry shortcake and putting Cool Whip on it. And I originally told her, I said, I think I'm going to go, since the ice cream stand's open for the season, to get a hot fudge sundae. I opted not to do that because I had some strawberries here. I said, well, I know the strawberries are good for me, but I don't know about the Cool Whip. Cool Whip actually only has 20 calories in it per serving.
Yeah, well, an entire tub is one serving, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, I know you're not telling Dan that because I purposely did that because you didn't come in tonight to defend yourself. I'm taking advantage of you and Dan at the risk of my own entertainment.
All right. Now, just for the public record, when Lindsay and I first got together, I had an unfortunate personal experience that left me rather depressed, and I was not taking care of myself. I was not eating right. I was not drinking anything. I was not smoking. I was just kind of getting by. I think I was living off of just a couple of maybe a can of soup per day or something. But I was down to about 120 pounds, and I'm 5'11", and that's not a healthy weight for somebody.
Pretty skinny, yeah.
I was pretty much a walking skeleton, and I lay it to the depression because I had no interest in taking care of myself. And Lindsay got here and gave me an interest in taking care of myself, and she is an awesome cook, and she just has been doing her best. She got me back up to my normal 150 pounds for that age and height. And now She's got me eating healthy, but she's also got me eating um, more than one meal a day. So I'm now up to damn near 200 pounds, and I'm going. This is not exactly. Um, I can feel that it's a little bit too much, and I walk 10 to 15 miles a day, so I'm getting exercise.
You're how tall?
5'11".
5'11". So yeah, I'm 6'2", and I weigh. Well, I just went back up to 200. So I've been averaging between 198 to 201, somewhere around there. So, but I'm maintaining that, and I that for well, your BMI though, that's about on track though. I think, or pretty close to it.
Yeah, maybe so, but um I do need to do more than just walk for exercise. When I stopped doing all the really physical labor at the factory, and basically my only exercise was walking, I kind of ballooned up. So I need to do a little bit more than just walk. There. Yeah, I feel like I should. There's stuff I can do without having to go to a gym. Just kind of.
Oh yeah.
I I should use the push mower more instead of the riding mower, things like that. Put some upper body physical strength into stuff, and work out those muscles. And um, oh well, it's neither here nor there. Um, I'm fat and happy. I don't care. But
Well, if you're healthy, that's the main thing, and that's I don't
yeah.
I'm eating healthier, but well, you saw I drank a Coke tonight, but then that's the first Coke I drank in well over a week. I think last Thursday I drank what did I drink? Oh, Sprecher's root beer. So with the pop, the only time I'm drinking the pop is either on this show or maybe in the green room sometimes. Even then, most often I'm drinking the vitamin water, but I drink 16 to 20 ounces of this vitamin water that has all these antioxidants, the selenium and the vitamin B2, B4, B6, B12, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and whatever other crap's in it. Blueberry acai. Oh, let's see, what is it called? Blueberry acai pomegranate. I ever in my life thought I would be drinking this stuff on a daily basis.
That actually sounds good. A little
It
bit.
is. It is. It's not overly sweet. I will say that it's 60 calories if you get the one with the sugar. The brand name is Glacio. But they do offer a zero sugar, 0 calories one as well. That's what Laura drinks. That one I don't particularly care for, just the taste. If it doesn't taste good,
you're not going to stick to it.
I'm not going to stick to it. And that's the same with all the diet pop. The only diet pop I was ever able to drink that I won't say I actually liked, but I could stomach was the Diet Coke. Any other, the Pepsi free, Diet Pepsi, any other diet drink that ever came out, and believe me, I tried a lot of them, but it never, and a lot of it was that it had NutraSweet when it came out in the late 70s, early 80s, and that got to be the big thing. Hey, we're not putting saccharin that causes cancer in our drinks anymore. We're putting NutraSweet in there. Well, NutraSweet helped contributed to my ulcers. And didn't know it at the time, but
I believe my downfall is the sausage and egg biscuits for breakfast and the pasta salads for lunch or snacks. Pasta and biscuits.
yeah.
That will put a few pounds on you.
Well, I'm a big potatoes eater, so whether it be hash browns or Rita Crispers or crispy crowns or tater tots, I love that stuff. I can eat a small dish of that for supper and nothing else and be fine with it. But I have a problem swallowing. I don't know if it's something with my esophagus or whatever, but my doctor, the specialist, said to, instead of just eating 3 meals a day, because I told him, I said, I get full and eat about a third of my full meal. And that's part of the reason why I stopped eating the pancakes at home, because I would make the one big pancake because that's all I know how to make. Or, well, I know how to make smaller ones, but not as good. But I couldn't even eat half of the pancake. And he said, you need to eat smaller meals, but instead of eating 3 meals a day, eat a whole bunch of little meals instead of 3 regular sized meals.
I have read the medical reports on that. It does seem to be that if you eat much smaller portions, but eat every 2 to 3 hours or
yeah,
2 to 4 hours, and not fill yourself up, but just enough fuel to keep going. It's like topping off a gas tank after you've driven 100 miles. That's a good analogy right there.
Yeah, and I'm not doing it to lose weight. I'm doing it because that's the only way I can eat right now. It's just real small portions of something. Now, well, every morning I'll have 1 cup of coffee. Typically, I might get through the whole cup, but it's 1 cup of coffee, and then my bowl of grits or oatmeal, and then sometimes I'll change it up with cream of wheat or something or other. But it's small portions, and I think too, because the grits or cream of wheat, stuff like that, it's I can't really explain it, but it's just a little bit more easier to digest.
Yes.
And I think that
it is very filling, though. Yes.
Well, and you got to remember, it was my upper GI tract that I had the problem with the bleeding ulcer.
That's true. That's true.
And he went in with the balloon and expanded it 12 millimeters. And he said, if you have that problem again with the bleeding ulcer and that, or you get sick, and he said, he goes, I'm saying, don't wait to the point that you got as sick as you did, where I got to put the hose back down through your nose into your
stomach.
You don't
want that. You don't.
I definitely, I will do everything in my power to avoid that again.
Well, but I do believe my weakness is Lindsay has learned to bake some fantastic biscuits for breakfast. And basically, looking back over my history, it wasn't until I was carpooling with a guy that wanted to stop at some of the local breakfast places and grab a huge biscuit that I started gaining weight and not being able to get rid of it. I think it is the biscuits, but Lord help me, they're so good. I do not want to give them up. I swear. And it's just
I may be coming to your house for supper some night here, but or breakfast, one of the two. But
breakfast, if you want Lindsay to cook, yeah, and well,
that's the biscuits that I love the best are the little ones from Cracker Barrel, not the big huge ones, but they're little, and there's a little bit of flour still on it, and
yep. Now, not only has Lindsay been providing me with some really, I mean, Southern grandma quality biscuits with sausage and eggs and whatnot for breakfast, but now her cooking is eclectic. It's a blend of British, Tex-Mex, and what Southern she has learned since she got here. And I have yet to find anything that she makes that I do not like.
Well, I'm gonna actually, one of the things that I'm going to be doing tomorrow, doing some baking, because I typically on Friday mornings, either while I'm doing my work or before I'm doing my work, or of course if I have a commission I'm working on, which typically there's been a lot of that the last 6 months or so, but Fridays I do a little bit of baking. Just do it once a week. And I'm going to make the cinnamon pie crust rolls that I make for Laura to take to the auction.
About those, yeah.
And I'll say I save a few for myself, but it used to be I would get those for her and give them to her when we get in the auction house, and then she would eat on some, but then she would try to give me some, or if our other friend Laura was with us, or her dad or somebody, give some to them. But I know that I thought I'm going to give them to her before she goes in. That way she keeps them out in the car and she can take them home with her, because she'll eat those the next, and I make enough for her, usually about 15 or 20 of them, that she can eat them for the next several mornings and before she goes to work, or just
15
getting up.
20 ought to last more than several mornings.
Well, these are small. They're a little bit bigger round in diameter to this, not by much. And instead of the length of this, they're about like from here to here. So because I got to roll them that way to pinch the ends, so none of the sugar and butter and cinnamon leak out. And then
yes,
you do that, it causes them to either burn or caramelize. And I don't ever. That's a trick that my grandmother taught me how to do it that way, instead of rolling them like a traditional cinnamon roll, which it would all kind of come out then. But so yeah, these things you pop them and they melt in your mouth, and they're wonderful with a cup of coffee in the morning or hot chocolate at night or whatever, but I'm usually baking something in that, and I'll eat a little bit of what I have in that, and I give more away.
Laura says, more away than you actually eat.
Yeah, because then that's that much less in the house for me to be concerned about being tempted by, and typically I'm not all that tempted too much anymore with it, and even the stuff that I feel like I could be tempted about, like that cookie butter that we get at Trader Joe's. I limit myself on that because, for one, we don't get to go up there very often to be able to stop. Of course, after this trip on Tuesday, it'll probably be that way too for a while, unless I have enough time to where me and her dad can stop, which I know he he loves a lot of stuff from there. But
well,
I limit. I limit. Everything in moderation. That's always been my
yes, indeed.
my thing that I go by. And
well, with the overtime that I'm due to get in the near future, I'll be getting a whole lot more exercise. Because I'll be going from 8-hour work days to 12-hour work days, 2 or 3 days a week, basically.
Right.
But it's just one of those things. I used to work 12-hour shifts, and I got a lot of physical exercise. I don't get anywhere near as much as I did before, and I think my metabolism is geared towards eating a lot because I'm going to burn it off. And now I'm not burning it off.
Yeah. Now, see, one thing too that I think contributed to my weight loss over the years is that I take thyroid medicine, which does Synthroid. I take the generic of Synthroid levothyroxine, and it does contain a diuretic in it, and also antidepressant, which right. I don't know about ever being depressed.
Well, I mean, you've got a naturally bubbly personality, but that doesn't mean anything to actual. What shall I call it? I wouldn't say clinical. I would say depression has so many causes. And some people are prone to it because of their biochemistry rather than any actual real stress in their life, which only magnifies the problem rather than is the root of the problem. Now,
I'm not sure I agree about the bubbly personality. I think if I have a bubbly personality, that just only means that the tea kettle has been on the cooktop a little bit too long and needs to be taken off before it boils over. But
what I meant was you're not a depressing person to be around.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. But and I don't think I go the other way either. I mean, as I know, I've had friends that they weren't happy unless they weren't happy. If that makes any sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. I know people exactly like that. But no, you tend to generate happiness in other people. That's my description of bubbly. You're not Garfield, but you're not Odie either. You're somewhere in that happy medium. You're probably John.
Well, I don't think I have the flair of his style of clothing, but anyway.
I really hadn't noticed that much flair in John's clothing, but you're the expert.
It's a little wild.
I'll defer to you.
No, I just want. I mean, there's so much crap going on right now, and I know there's a lot of things you and I don't agree upon, and that's fine because you know what? Life is too short to worry about the little things, and
Lord, yeah.
I just don't. I say, you know what? Get over it, Bill, and move on. And I move on to better things, which for me are typically cartoons or comic books or something like that, that I would be called a dork over. But I think that I could be a lot worse, I guess. And I've seen other people who were, and that were just in the thralls of one political rant to another or this or that. I have my beliefs on certain things about that and about religion, and I never will back down about my faith, but I'm not an in-your-face person about any of the above. And if you want to get my ire up, tell me an untruth about a cartoon character or something. Maybe, I don't know. I couldn't imagine right now. And I think
Huckleberry Hound
rising.
was actually a penguin.
Yeah, that's it. You are no longer rising tide.
See,
and
I know all
but
the buttons to push.
well,
Oh yeah,
there are a lot of people who boast about such things, and I hear or see too much the other way, and so therefore I won't be a part of that. And because I don't want to get drugged down into the same muck and mire that they're in,
really.
whether it's talking bad about another person or just some view they have or anything else. And that everybody is entitled to their views. I mean, that's why we live here. And but when they jump on you for your views, that's an entirely different thing.
As the old saying goes, when you wrestle a pig, you can't win, and eventually you figure out the pig likes it.
Yeah, and you're bound to get dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's a grease pig.
Ooh. Oh, why am I suddenly reminded of grease flagpole climbing competitions? Is that not a Sadie Hawkins Day thing?
I
For
don't
some
know.
reason, that's what I associate it with. But
I will say on the record, I've not participated in that or the grease pig contests, although I've seen a few of them.
The closest I want to come to grease is pumping it into the bearings on something, or maybe a little bit of bacon drippings in the frying pan before I scramble some eggs, but that's about it.
Yeah, but no, and even what I do, I know is not for everybody. What I draw or what have you, I can tell by the amount of hits that I get on certain sketches I post or certain cartoons or commercials or shows or whatever I put on. Uh, Oddly enough, I don't understand this, but when I post a music video, like, the Ides of March, I posted Vehicle by the Ides of March.
Yes, very good.
That's the no-brainer. Not one hit, not one view. I posted the same thing in my artwork channel, thinking, here, I'm going to show you how clever I am. Not one hit. No, none of the, and for a while I thought, are people not seeing it?
That must have been one of the days I wasn't on Facebook, because I would have definitely given that a love heart right there, because I love that song.
Yeah, there and actually on Monday of this week, I had a bad, or what you might call a typical Monday, kind of a Garfield Monday. Okay, that's where Garfield and I probably do relate.
Just another Garfield Monday.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a manic Monday, but actually the song I posted was "I Don't Like Mondays" by the Boomtown Rats.
Yes.
Okay. Sung by Bob Geldof.
Yep. And I remember that one and the tragic story that prompted it too. And I love the song.
Absolutely.
I get emotional about the backstory, but that doesn't inhibit my appreciation of the song itself. And there's quite a number of things like that have or have come to have negative connotations. There are a lot of
Mm.
there are several songs by um, artists who I didn't know anything about back in the day that have become, shall we say, problematic
Mm-hmm.
because of their personal predilections that I would not condone or support, and I try and separate the music from the artist as much
Mm-hmm.
as I possibly can.
Well,
Sometimes it's not possible, but most of the time it is, and I hate to say ignore, but I can uh, condemn their problematic actions while appreciating the talent and performance that they put into the music that I did not know that their um, problematic
there's
lifestyle. No, that's the wrong
yeah.
word. Their problematic personal history um, would have um, dampened my enjoyment of their work. And I have to tiptoe around some things that I actually like because um, I have been um, enlightened basically as to some of the actual history of one artist or another that is, shall we say, less than stellar behavior for a human being,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that makes it difficult sometimes to separate the artist from the artwork. Um,
Well, there's a lot of that. It's like
yeah,
Laura, of course, did not know the Boomtown Rats, even though that would have been during her high school days as well as mine, 1979. And I said, well, Bob Geldof actually started all these festivals that became real popular in the 80s for charitable events. And you
we
might
are the world.
recognize,
Live Aid. Yeah,
yeah,
all
USA for Africa, the US
kinds of
Festival, yeah, Live Aid.
yep.
He was the man behind all that. Did
Bill,
not know either one, but there
we're
is
about
a song. You talk about the Boomtown Rats song and the meaning behind it. I've heard this song many times, and I'm sure you have too, and probably Chris, if he was still in here, would have. It's a Christopher Cross song
mhm.
called "Think of Laura" that come out in it was not off of his first album that had Sailing and Ride Like the Wind and those songs. The one with Michael McDonald, which I can't remember the name of it right now because it's too late, but
Yeah.
it was, I think, the album after that, or maybe two albums later. But anyway, early 80s, and a beautiful, beautiful song called Think of Laura. And then I found out the story behind the song, which the song was written about his then to be wife's best friend who horribly died in an auto accident,
Mm,
and how his then to be wife was having enormous problems coping with her
yes.
loss, which I just, and I'm like, I got to pull these lyrics up and pay more attention to the lyrics of it.
Well,
And Lord, sure enough, I'm like, oh my God, this makes sense. And now I can't hear that song the same way ever again.
mhm.
You
uh,
know,
Chris said, "Ride like the wind." Is that the
yeah,
one?
that was off his debut album from 1979, self titled album.
Hmm.
Uh,
Bill,
but
we've gone 3 hours. I'm going to have to shut the show.
yeah, I need to. I need to back out and get a few hours of sleep, as I'm sure you do. But
hey, every time I get to spend time with you and Chris and Joe Dog and John, everything is right with the world. So I've had a great time. I hope you have too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This has been one of the better shows that we've had. I'm sorry that only 2 or 3 people have been watching it live. I'm hoping that there's more replays.
Watch the reruns. That's the great thing about it.
As soon as the end credits roll, I'm going to go to YouTube and put it up on the playlist along with all the rest of the Last Man Standings, and hope for the best. And look, you go get some sleep. You're going to have a busy day. You're going to have a busy weekend. And
especially the first part of next week. But so I should be here at least for probably the first hour of Stupid O'Clock Saturday. Try to do, if not anything else, just kind of a drop in for a little bit and that. But yeah, there's big Sunday coming on, being Easter, and and then the next couple days afterwards are things I need to do.
Yep. Starting tomorrow, I've got to start getting ready the May issue of Aphelion. There's a lot of stories that I have to go through and edit and set up the web page code and stuff like that, so it'll display properly and everything. I've got to notify the writers that, hey, the first Sunday in May, you need to tune in because your story is going to be here. You're going to want to link to it and tell your friends about it and everything. But all right, Bill, let's go ahead and hit the end credits here. Thank you very much. It has been a wonderful evening, and you take care, and I'll worry about you when you ain't here. I hope that's all right. But
I'll try to keep everybody updated on that. But without getting into it, there's just some unanswered questions that I know that I'm in the process of trying to find out. And I've actually even joined a Facebook group, support group that are people who either have had or currently have MDS, and much like Laura's joined one for women who've gone through the surgery that she's getting ready to go through. That's a bigger, and so and part of it is probably going to scare me to death, probably some of the things that I'm going to read, but then I think some of the other things are going to be reassuring. So, but either way, I'll even though I'm fairly private about all this, as far as not spewing out on Facebook about stuff going on with me, I'll definitely keep you and John and Joe Dog and everybody involved, on the Stupid O'Clock messenger link, updated to what's going on and the days I can come in and the days that I can't. So, got a lot on my plate for after the 25th of the month when Laura can't do things for a while. So
always remember, you are not alone. You have
I know.
You have a support group. You have a lot of people that care about you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And I care the same about all of you and
yes,
all your trials that you're going through.
That's one of the things that we love about you. You do care,
Yeah.
and you're very honest about that. So, well, you go to bed. I'm gonna go to bed.
Yep.
Let's tell the story and give Nick Talkert his little shout out here
Yep.
in the end credits, and he just absolutely loves that. I'm glad I put him in there. I don't think I ever want to change that, but one of these days I'm going to have to write another story for the end credits. I don't know. People might be getting tired of this one, but that's neither here nor there. But thank you very much for everything tonight.
Oh.
It's been a world of fun. It's been interesting, and it's been just a fantastic journey. So,
Well, thank you for having me, and bye con Dios amigo, and anybody else out there as well. And that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's story time. Nighty night.